I'm sorry, by the way, Heraclix owns RNN. So Heraclix we're big fans of yours, and we actually we did a whole bunch of Traitify tests on all our people here, and scarily accurate, by the way.
Oh, that's
So
great.
yeah,
Well,
so we
let me know
recommend it
if
a
you
lot.
ever want me to lead a team building session for you.
That'd be fun, actually. I will. I'll get back to you on that. So, and I really will, because we love that kind of
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes.
So RNN is, as I mentioned, is part of HireClix, which is a consulting firm, ad agency, marketing agency around talent acquisition. And we were spun up about a year and a half ago to look at the news side of the industry and essentially be very independent, but still also work with some great colleagues, et cetera. So that's kind of my
Yeah.
structure, if that makes sense. And
Yeah, absolutely.
and the happiness thing, when it came across my desk, I was like, was fascinating. And I've been looking at that in general for a little bit, how it's shifting with the pandemic. There was an interesting article. A professor from the University of East Anglia did a piece on. They measured their team measured Glassdoor reviews. I think it was 300 plus public companies. They looked at
Right.
325,000 reviews. They were all of current employees to kind of filter it. And they put a lot of more around that to structure it, make sure it was accurate. And they compared those reviews, the top 25 companies, to the stock market. And if you're in the top 25%, you do very well as far as your stock goes. So there's a financial tie-in to happiness. And by the way, I'll ping you that article later on if you want to look at it.
Yeah, I would love to. That's really fascinating. And there is, and this is, to me, it's so interesting because it's kind of a no-brainer, and yet people don't seem to get it. I mean, as I said in the happiness report, people who are happier, they're more engaged, they do better, they communicate better with their teammates, and they're just much more likely to stay longer and have a positive view of the company. And so it's interesting to see that sort of playing out in terms of profit, which isn't a surprise, but I think is, for some people it is, right? They don't realize that that happiness does impact the bottom line. It's not a superfluous thing that you can have or not have with your employees, right? It really is vital. So it's good to see that there's, data linking that as well.
So here's the question. What made you decide to do the actual report in the first place? Like why? I mean, was it so obvious I want to do this, or no one's talking about it? What kind of drove you in this direction?
Well, I think there are a couple of different things. One is there were so many articles on, people having to shift to work from home models, right? So it was companies having to go from in-office space to work from home. Um, and for some sector of the kind of common job worker, that's important, right? If you were in a call center before and now suddenly you're working from home, that was really important. And there were talks around happiness. Are people happier? Are they not happier working from home? How does that look? But then really it became this also driving force that there's a whole other type of people in a common job who really are the essential workers, right? So these are people working in the grocery stores and working in warehouses for distribution or delivering things. And even jobs like a certified, registered nurse or certified nursing assistant, excuse me. These are all there are a lot of people in these roles, but they don't have the option of going home. So it's a different world out there. And I think people were beginning to talk about how these workers were feeling, and some of them were afraid and didn't go to work. And were they happy? Were they not happy? How were their companies reacting? Did that make a difference? And so we really felt like there were a lot of anecdotal stories out there, but there wasn't a whole lot of data around how are people in these sort of common jobs, some of whom are essential, just how are these people feeling? Are they happier? Are they less happy? How do they feel like their companies are reacting? Have they lost their job? Are they still employed? What are they looking for if they're looking for a job? So all of those questions, I think, really led up to our decision to start this study and really find out objectively through some survey data how these people were feeling.
Any surprises in the data?
I mean, that's a great question. I think that one of the things that I kind of knew but was surprising to me how much it stood out was the fact that what makes most people happy really were a reasonable pay or a good pay, feeling like they had a good income or a good salary, And then job security. So people really wanted to feel safe. And that really came out in our survey, that those were really the top two things that people in these kind of common jobs cared about and were most important to their happiness, was really what they were being paid and that they felt like they had a secure job, as opposed to liking their work environment or something like that. And it wasn't that those things weren't also important, but they really, things that stood out were those sort of basic needs of really wanting to feel safe and secure, like they could take care of their families. And I think that was, maybe not necessarily a surprise, but very salient and very important, because when we think about these workers, um, that is something that I think sometimes gets neglected. So it was really important to see these people really care about, are they able to take care of their families? Are they able to have that safety and that security in their job?
Does that, when I was looking at the report, this thing stood out was that one of the top deciding factors for happiness for unemployed people who are still unemployed was and part of their job search criteria was commute time. Does that tie into the need for safety and family, or what was there more data
I
behind that?
absolutely think it does. I think it does for a couple of different ways. One of the things that the pandemic did for all of us was made us really focus and think about our health, the health and safety of our family members, and also how much time we spend with them. So if you have a job that, you're not making a lot of money and you have to commute a long ways, it takes you away from your family. It takes more time away from them. And you can't get back as quickly as possible if someone gets sick or something happens. And so I do think that really fed into it. People didn't want to spend that time commuting. And they also really wanted to be close by in case they needed to attend to anything, particularly if they have children. Because remember, for some areas of the world, schools didn't close. For others, they completely closed. And for some, it was a hybrid model. So they were in school, but it was shorter days. And they weren't there every day of the week. And so there was more of a need for parents and family members to step in to kind of shuttle people from place to place or to be there to supervise. So I think that is really some of the things that are driving that finding.
Interesting. It makes sense when you think about it too.
Yeah,
Mental health. Mental health is a massive topic coming out of the pandemic.
absolutely.
For obvious reasons. I mean, I know when the shutdown happened, my heart rate went up. At the point I thought I was having like problems with my health. And my doctor, he said, "Oh, he goes, the problem is your fight or flight mechanism is just stuck right now. You want to fight a tiger
Yes,
or run away from it, you can't do either. So you're just in constant kind of panic mode." So that's fantastic, great. Um, but
exactly.
it hit everybody, right? In all kinds of
It
directions.
did.
Yeah, everything from general mental health to substance abuse. In looking at reports
Yes.
that the volume of substance abuse the skyrocketed in the last 12 months. I have a
Yeah, and
good
that
friend who,
so many
yeah,
people who'd been clean for so many years
sure,
suddenly weren't,
yeah,
because yeah, they couldn't go to their AA meetings,
yep,
or their, yeah, they didn't have their support networks. Suddenly
yep,
that was ripped from them.
for sure, for sure, and even folks who had never had an issue before had it hit them too. So it all kind of bubbled up, right? In your analysis, the top ranked, I think, was a perk or benefit that employees had was an unexpected mental health day off from their executives, from their company. Let's talk a bit about that. I think that's interesting. I mean, that was so critical. It was the most important thing to them, I think. Is that correct? Or
It is, and maybe to your earlier question, maybe that's really the biggest surprise factor to come out of all of this, was that that one thing was so important to them. And I think that there are a few reasons behind that. One is, first of all, so our company, after the happiness report, our CEO gave us all an unexpected day off for our mental health,
sure,
following the advice, and it made me like giddy. And I was like, wow, like legitimately, I was like, wow, I am legitimately happier right now. And I think there are two reasons for that. One is that who doesn't love an unexpected day off where you can
it's a snow day.
literally
It's a
just
snow day when you're a kid.
relax? It's a snow day. It's absolutely a snow day. Exactly. Two, it shows that your employer really cares, right? They really care enough about you to put you first, to show that you are at an organization that really truly doesn't pay lip service, but actually cares about you and your mental health. And I think that's the thing. There's still this weird, I think, taboo around mental versus physical health. Um, and I think this really allows people to see that you need to take care of your mental health. It's just as important as your physical health, and your employer really does care about it. So I think that's why it really is the one thing that made people feel happier.
Interesting. I just thought that was fascinating. I mean,
It is.
it's not a huge thing when you think about it in the scheme of things, but and
Yes,
it may also tie into just the volume of pressure we've all been carrying the last 12 months.
it
Any
does.
bit of relief, unexpected relief, it is just overwhelmingly wonderful. You're letting steam out, you're less pressure. That makes sense.
Yes.
So how do employers use this to help guide them? What's in terms of recruiting, hiring, and just general happiness for their employees? What are your recommendations from what you've seen from the report?
Absolutely. That's such a great question. And it's so important. I think there are several action items that you can take away. One is there's a section in the happiness report that asks the people who aren't employed, what do you care about in the apply process? So starting there, the biggest things that they care about are good communication, right? And an easy apply process. So those two things are absolutely vital so that the application be short, easy to do, preferably all in one place. That makes them, really excited about applying for a job. The other thing is communication. So not being ghosted. Nobody likes to be ghosted. Nobody likes to put in an application and not hear back anything. And then you spend time wondering, did you do it wrong? Did you not hand it in? Did they just not care about you at all? Were you not even worth, hey, we got your job application? Nobody likes that. So the biggest thing that candidates want are that feedback that, hey, we got your application, you're in this status of review, or we'll get back to you. And those things I think often can be automated, but just having something to give back to that candidate is huge. So that's, I think, the kind of very easy kind of early apply process that you can do if you're looking to fill positions. Um, the other thing, if you're really thinking about making your people happy and thinking about your actual employees, think about how much you're paying them and think about how much security you can give them. And security for a common job or hourly worker can be about the number of hours that you give them. So can you give them, 30 plus hours a week? Can you hire maybe a few people, and the people that you do have those people be approaching full-time work? Can you just pay a little bit better? Again, even a dollar or two an hour can make a big difference to these people and their families. And so if you're able to do that, and maybe again, it means you hire fewer people, but if you've got fewer people and they're really motivated and they're getting the hours they want and they feel secure, they're going to be happier. They're going to work better for you. They're going to be less likely to do things like calling off, because again, they're happy in their job. They're glad to have it. So in terms of a kind of easy pay, et cetera, thing to think about, I think that's first and foremost top of mind. Some of the other things I think that they can do are very simple things like giving one mental health day off to people unexpectedly, right? Our company did that. It was great. It really did make a difference. That's not a big ask for a large company to just say, okay, there's one day you can take off and we'll pay you for it. And maybe you can't do that for everyone on the same day, but you kind of move it around or whatever. I think that again, it had a huge impact. It's a relatively small thing, but it has a very, very big impact on how happy people feel and how loyal they're going to be to the company. Some of the other things that we found, I think, in terms of advice are people want to feel cared for. So the other things that increase their happiness at work were their company and their managers in particular just checking in with them once a week to see how they're doing. Literally just a, hey, how are you doing? Martin, how's your day been? Are you feeling okay? Do you need anything from me? Very simple, very quick, very easy, but that kind of communication really goes a long way to showing that you care about your people. And I think the final thing really is it's sort of the same with the coworkers. So fostering that sense of teamwork. hey, we're all on the same team. People are happier when they feel like they're communicating well with the other people on their team. So whatever you can do to make your work environment as cooperative as you can, I think will have big payoff in the long term in terms of happiness and loyalty.
Okay, no, that's fair. That makes a lot of sense. It's funny how obvious some of this seems when you look at it, but getting there is challenging. I
Yeah,
was thinking about the hourly worker too thing, and 'cause I've been looking a lot at what's happening in the food workers with food workers.
absolutely.
The McDonald's strike, Chipotle's raises that are working and not working. Yeah, the issues with hiring in general for that industry are, I mean, really interesting right now. And I
Yes.
was thinking about hourly in general on that topic and what's happening with the raises. Did you see any real big difference between the happiness of hourly workers versus salaried workers? Is it are they fairly similar or
Yeah,
the
so
difference?
for this particular survey, we actually really focused on the kind of common jobs, which tend to
Okay,
be more
gotcha.
hourly
Sure,
workers.
sure.
So I think in future iterations, we will probably broaden it out a little bit, but we were really wanted to pinpoint because a lot of our customers tend to be in the hourly space. We really wanted to pinpoint how these people were feeling
Makes
and what
sense.
they could do.
Makes sense. I want you to look at kind of a broader view too. I'm curious what my gut is there's a delta.
I'm
Right.
sure.
But I'm
Yeah.
curious what that looks like. You in terms of sort of advice for employees and their own personal happiness, anything kind of stood out from the report for people, not the employer, but the actual employee, what they can do to be proactive or make changes?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the report questions focused on what their sort of employer could do and what they were
Mhm.
looking for. But I do think you can extrapolate from some of that. Again, so what are the things that people wanted? They wanted security. So if you're already in a job, you can do things like just being very clear with your manager about what your expectations are, what you need to feel safe at work,
Mhm.
and that may, because one of the things that also came up was are the protocols that your company instituted for COVID making you feel safe? Are they helping you to feel safe? So that's another thing. I think that as an actual worker, if something isn't making you feel safe, or if there's something that easily the company could do that could be done to make you feel more comfortable, you need to be able to express that, right? Let your employer know, because often the people making these decisions are not the people who are in that job, and they just don't know. It's not that they don't want to know or that they don't care, but they literally just don't have that information. So I think whatever you can do to, in as straightforward a way as possible, just explain what you need to make you happier, to make you feel safe, is key. I think the other thing is foster relationships with your coworkers. It really does make such a huge difference, especially if you're in a physical workspace. If you are in a workspace where you respect one another and you enjoy spending time together, it's going to be so much easier for you in general. So that's another thing that you can do, as well as just remembering that it really is important to take care of yourself, to take care of your health, to take care of your mental health. I think those are really, really important things. And some of that stuff that you can do is relatively simple and easy. There are a lot of amazing meditation apps. For example, I know the Cleveland Clinic has one that can really just help you focus on your breathing. We spend so much time chest breathing when we're anxious, and I can tell I'm doing it now. And if you remember to just take a second and really breathe deeply, right? And these
Yeah,
apps can
a
kind of
yoga
help
breath
people do that.
up through
A
the nose.
yoga
Yep,
breath.
yep,
That's
sure.
right, a yoga breath. And there are apps that you can literally do a quick meditation breathing exercise that takes you 2 minutes. So there are things like that that really anyone can do that I think really can make a big difference in terms of the worker being able to just have a more pleasant, enjoyable work environment and just feel better about their day.
That's fair. We're approaching the half hour, so I don't want to take up your whole afternoon. But another question for you in terms of, and I'm thinking about sort of the practical parts of this. How does if an employer is delivering happiness at some level, how do they
Yep.
showcase that to candidates? Well, and still be authentic? Because you can do all kinds of kumbaya videos and whatnot that maybe are fake or staged, and a lot of stock photos. Everyone raising their hands up, they're so happy. But what really resonates with candidates?
That's a great question. I think it is true that if you have a specific employee, it's always better if you have a person's actual story. So if you have a specific employee that you can get to give just a brief little testimonial about something that that company has actually done that makes them feel happy at work, that's one thing that's huge. Another thing is if you can just do an employee kind of happiness survey at your work, it could be one question, two questions, and you can literally show that X% of our employees say they are happy on the job, or Y% say that we have made changes in the last year that have made them happier on the job. That's the kind of things that I think people really care about. So it's really an actual story from a real person, not just someone saying, our employees are all happy. And then you see super happy employees in a video. They really do like to hear those individual personal stories. And then also, if something that's a little bit more data driven. So we actually asked our employees in an anonymous survey, how happy are you? Or how much did this change impact your happiness? Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? And those are quick, those are easy. And I think that can do a huge, it's a huge benefit for your organization when you're able to report that data and really market it in that way.
Interesting. Are you considering a Traitify setting up some kind of happiness score or rating system for
Yeah,
employees?
that's a
Or
great question. I think it's not in the cards right this second.
sure,
This was our sort of inaugural report, but I do think we're certainly planning on making this something that we do and that we measure, and probably in the future reaching out to our own clients and saying, "Hey, is this something that you'd be interested in understanding more about and assessing more about your individual people?"
yeah, I'm just thinking it'd be interesting to have that score in your career site, like rated, top 90% happiest employers in the country. That's a selling point right there, I would think. So
It is. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great, great direction to go in for sure.
cool, very cool. Well, anything else you wanted to add, Doctor? By the way, I didn't do the intros properly earlier. Dr. Heather Myers, Traitify, wonderful, brilliant human being. Um, Anything you want to add at the top end here for our readers slash viewers?
I think the most important thing for me is to remember that employee happiness is really important. It's so important. And we can make, as people who are in leadership positions or people who are developing our talent or hiring our talent, there are relatively small things that we can do to make people happier, to make the process easier. And that really will translate, as we were talking before, into profits and into happier employees who are more engaged, who perform better and stay longer. If there's anything that you could take away from this, I think it would be that.
That's fair. That's a very good point. Wilson, I appreciate your time. This has been great. Really interesting report. I'm looking forward to next year's. I like this is your benchmark. Now we can
That's
kind of
right.
build off of it. And if you do more surveys around salaried employees and whatnot, I'd love to see it obviously because I'm a geek for this kind of stuff, which is a weird thing to
Yes.
have in my life,
I
but I
love it
am.
though. It's great.
It makes me happy.
I'm a
And I
data
really
person, so
nice,
that just
nice,
makes
great,
me
great,
super
great,
happy.
fabulous, fabulous. Wilson, I appreciate your time again. This has been great chat. This will be on our site within a couple of days. And I encourage
Great.
everyone to reach out to you. They want to connect with you. How can they find you on LinkedIn? How can they reach you if they have questions or follow-ups?
Yes, that is a great question. And since we're recording, I can actually look at my LinkedIn and find out. I always forget what my LinkedIn name
Somebody
is.
asked me that question 30 minutes ago in another call, and I was like, I did the same thing. I'm like, hang on, I got a LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, I'm gonna go to LinkedIn. So you can always find me through the Traitify website. If you go to traitify.com and then you go to our people, you can find me there, link to my email and also LinkedIn and Twitter. But also on LinkedIn, you can find me at Heather-Myers-PhD.